us again. We are back inside the RV, and again, we apologize for the noise of our AC, but we are not turning this thing off. It is super hot today. We've been cleaning this RV, so we apologize for our scruffy look today, but we are getting this done. We've also been shooting a lot of videos today, but we wanted to do this for you guys today. We are talking all about this RV again. In this video, we are going to go over our history with this RV because it's actually a more in-depth history than we've ever told you guys. We're also going to go over the expenses to this RV as much as we can. We didn't really keep up with all of that paperwork, but we're going to try our best to remember what all everything costed and give an estimate of how much the total price was. And then we're also going to give you any advice we have if you plan on looking into this and doing this for yourself. If you plan on getting a vintage RV, we're going to tell you what advice we have now that we've been doing this for a few years now, at least renovating this for a few years now, and what particularly Stephen, I'm sure he has some words of wisdom he could give. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on in and we'll get started. So first of all, we're going to talk about our history with this RV. And I'm going to let Stephen take it from here because it's a very sentimental story for how we got this RV. He knew the previous owner of this RV. His name was George. And do you want to tell everyone how you knew George and all that?
Yeah. Well, I know George for probably 20 years or longer, and he owned a motorcycle shop not far from where we live, and so me and my dad went up there when I was just a kid and met George, and we done a lot of business with him, you know, buying motorcycle parts and things like that. And then later on, you know, I actually went to work for George, and I learned motorcycle business. That's what I do for a living now. I own a motorcycle shop, and you know, I credit George for a lot of my education I got. You know, I didn't go to school to learn how to be a motorcycle mechanic. You know, I done it on the job training, and I learned from, you know, one of the best motorcycle mechanics there ever was, and that was George. And you know, he kind of took me under his wing and taught me everything he knew. So, you know, it was more than, you know, it was more than just my boss. You know, he was my friend. You know, we rode motorcycles together. We raced together. You know, we used to hang out, you know, outside of work and stuff. You know, so, you know, just a lot of history there. Well, sadly, you know, George passed away in 2018, and he was 79 years old, and so yeah. So this, you know, his wife was, you know, going to sell, you know, a lot of the stuff that he had, and this RV was one of them. He used to use this RV to go back and forth to the races in, and before it was parked, the last time it was on the road, I actually went to a motorcycle race with George in this RV in 2006, and that was the last time. After that race, he kind of parked it and didn't really do much else with it after that. So it's since 2006. So you know, I bought it from his widow, and you know, but like I said, it was in really bad shape then. But you know, it was. I mean, I always liked it, the RV, and plus it was just kind of a way to remember George, you know, because I mean, we, you know, had a lot of good times, you know, going to the races and stuff. And so I just thought it would be a, you know, neat thing to get George's RV back up and going, and you know, get it back on the road, and we even left some of the little touches here and there that George had done to it. You know, we just kind of left that, you know, just as a, you know, kind of a reminder, or you know, to remember him. So yeah.
Yeah, George wasn't the only owner of this.
No. It was originally, I believe I'm the third owner of it. I believe George bought it from the original owner, because I've got a lot of paperwork that came with the RV, and it was originally sold in Fort Worth, Texas, is where it was sold at. And the fella that bought it looks like it spent most of its life in Fort Worth, Texas, up until about 1998 when it made it more east. We're in North Carolina, so it made it out to here, and George bought it in 1998, so he owned it from 98 to 2018, so he owned it for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we'll move to the portion of the video where we're going to talk all about the expenses and how much this thing costed. So what was the initial price that we paid to Marie for this
Initially, I paid $800 for the RV, and I paid a friend of mine $100 to load it up and to bring it home. So starting out of the gate, I had $900 in it.
900,
Yeah.
which really isn't that bad. It's
No.
not horrible, but
Yeah.
all the work that went into it. Do we want to go ahead and start trying to break down? It's going to be hard for us to remember
Yeah.
it all, you guys.
Well,
So we did not keep up with all of the receipts. That would have just
Yeah.
been too much, honestly.
I wish
It was a
I
lot.
wish I had kept up, with a separate folder of all the receipts and stuff of the stuff I bought. But fortunately, most all the work I done myself, so that saved a tremendous amount of money there. Because if you just can't buy one of these things and pay someone to do, if you can't do most of the work yourself, then you probably just don't need a vintage RV. At least you don't need a fixer-upper vintage RV.
Yeah, that's gonna. When we get to the advice portion,
Yeah.
I have some thoughts too of
Yeah.
of the type of people that should get into this.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for everyone.
So we probably don't have a tremendous amount of money in it because most all of it is just supplies that we bought. But probably just to break down some of the most expensive things we bought. Of course, we had $900 in the initial buy of the RV. Then we bought probably about $600 worth of tires. Probably I think I had about $250 in the fuel tank we put in it. Let's see, I was trying to think of something else that might have been pretty expensive.
All of the work to repair the water.
Yeah, we probably spent, I don't know, probably a few $100, $300 or $400 in wood and nails and screws and caulk and glue and things like that, to fix the water damage. We bought a refrigerator. That was what, $300
Yeah,
or something.
something like that.
Yeah, a refrigerator. We done some work on the generator. Spent probably a few $100s on the exhaust and things like that. We ran new exhaust on the RV, which was a couple $100s. Transmission, we had to fix that. But I done the work. I rebuilt the transmission myself. But parts wise, I probably had not that much. Probably probably a couple $100s in the transmission, but there was other things I did while I was in there, so I probably spent $400 in total on fixing the transmission. But you see what I mean? If you're doing this stuff yourself, you're really just out the parts and then of course your time.
Yeah.
But but like if you took this thing to a transmission shop to have the transmission rebuilt, you'd be looking at minimum of $2,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
doubling your money just in the labor, because it is a lot of work. Like whatever your mechanics charge you to do this, don't give them any mouth about it. Like it is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
Especially
He's personally seen it firsthand how much work this is. So be nice to your mechanics at all times.
Yeah.
Be nice and understanding, because they also have other work to do too. So be patient.
Yeah.
If we had to estimate, like a roundabout number, the total is.
If I had to sum it up in a figure, I figure in total we probably got less than $6,000 in it. Maybe closer to $5,000 maybe. So really not a lot when it comes to money for an RV. But if you had to count my time, we got more in this. We got more than the thing's worth. I mean, honestly, I mean, if we've had it. We bought it in 2019, so it's 2022 now. So we've had it for 3 years.
Just working on it. Like we've taken on one little weekend trip, but the rest of the time it's just been working on it.
I haven't worked on it, every day for 3 years.
In and out.
Yeah, but I've worked on it for months on end.
Yeah.
So hundreds of hours in this thing. So, my labor rate in my shop's like $50 an hour. So if I was charging someone to do this, I mean, you would have like $50,000 in a 1984 model motorhomes. So you see what I'm saying about doing the work yourself. But yeah, so I would say probably about $5,000 or $6,000 is what we have in it.
So, but I guess from there we'll go ahead and move on to our advice section. And we've kind of delved into that a little bit, but I guess the only advice that I would give if I had to give my 2 cents is that what we've kind of dived into a little bit. Whether or not you should look into getting a vintage RV, I feel like it's definitely not for everybody. I feel like you either have to be a mechanic yourself to know a lot about this, to be able to do it yourself. If you're going to be like us and do it yourself, be willing to do the work. You're going to have times where you're frustrated and going to have times where you want to quit. It's tough, but hopefully at the end of this, it'll be worth it. Like, this is such a nice RV now. It's going to be hopefully so great. But if you can't work on it yourself, but you want to, or if you just really want a vintage RV because they're really retro and have their own kind of style and they're just cool, if you're going to do that but you can't work on it yourself, be willing to spend the money. You have to be able to spend the money, so be willing to spend the money, and you better have patience about it too. Like we said previously, if you are taking it to a mechanic, don't be calling them every week or 2 weeks. Where's it at? How's it going? Like he runs a motorcycle shop, so we understand too, like, the life of a mechanic. Like, be nice to your mechanics, be patient with them, because this is a lot of work. Like, whatever they charge you, it's worth it. Like, be nice to your mechanics, be patient, be willing to spend that money. But yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah.
What would your advice be for anyone that would be looking into doing this?
Well, like I said, you know, you really need to have somewhat of a mechanical mindset, and you know, you need basic carpenter skills, of course. You know, I'm a mechanic, so I had the mechanical skills, and I had, you know, basic carpenter skills. You know, I'm not claiming to be no great carpenter or anything, but I learned a lot in this project. I really did, and I went on to build a addition onto my shop after this. So, you know, I learned a lot in carpenter work by just doing this. But you know, working on an RV is different than working on a house, just because you know, these things are really not made to take apart. You know, when they're put together at the factory, they're put together in stages, and when you take them apart, you got to take them apart in stages. You know, so it's really hard to repair, like, water damage and things like that without, you know, just pretty much gutting the whole thing. I mean, and starting over just about. So, and you know, it used like on this particular one, you know, a lot of it was glued together. You know, there was very little nails or screws. You know, most of, like, your all your inside paneling is all glued to the studs. You know, so, you know, that's really hard to remove that. But like I said, I heard a wise saying one time. It said, you know, you can save either time or you can save money, but you can't save both. so you know, if you think about it, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, either you're going to save the money and you're going to do a lot of work on fixing it up, or you just go ahead and buy one and spend a lot of money and go ahead and buy one that somebody else has done all the work to. But you know, you can't really do both. I mean, not
one or the other.
Not normally, anyways, unless you get the deal of a lifetime.
Yeah.
But most of us, I never get the deal of a lifetime. I always get what, you know, what I pay for.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my advice, like I said, and go ahead, and if you're looking at something that's been sitting around a long time and it needs, and you know, you see that there's some water damage and you see that there's things that need to be done, you know, don't just assume that that's everything. Go ahead and expect that there's going to be a lot more stuff that you don't see that's going to be wrong and needs to be repaired, because that's the way this was. I mean, yeah, it'd been sitting for 16 years, and I knew that it didn't run. There was water damage, but I didn't realize the extent of all of it. You know, the little bit of water damage I thought turned out to be a whole lot of water damage that had to be repaired. You know, the things that I seen that was wrong with the running part of it, that turned out to be more wrong. You know, like, and then, you know, once we bought it, we drove it. We went on one trip. Well, went on one large trip and one small trip, and right after that the transmission came out on it. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, you know, there's going to be a lot of unexpected stuff that pops up. So go ahead and anticipate that you're going to have to do a lot of work. And you know, and plus, if you're not familiar with RVs, I mean, it's different. I knew nothing about RV. Never owned one, never camped in one, never rode in one except for this one, and we just rode to the race in it. You know, we wasn't going camping or anything. We just rode to the race and rode back home. So, you know, I knew nothing about an RV. So I had to learn all this stuff. I had to learn how the propane system works. I had to learn how the hot water heater works. I had to learn how the, you know, water pumps worked and all that stuff, you know, and because nothing worked on this thing. Everything I had to get working because, you know, so, you know, it was a real learning curve. So if you don't really want to learn, you probably don't want a vintage RV, you know. Just say, you know, if you're wanting something that you don't have to do that much work to, and you can just like buy it and go on a trip right away, then just buy something just late model,
yeah,
you know.
Just get a newer one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know the vintage RV thing's a big trend these days. You know, there's tons of people on YouTube that's buying vintage RVs, and some see it through, you know, like we did, but some give up halfway through, you know, because
a lot of the ones that I've seen on YouTube too, a lot of them hire out mechanics. That's the reason I brought that up. I'm like, I really, like, they have to wait a long time, and, you know, mechanics, like, I know with your shop, a lot of times they don't see all the problems. They'll fix, like, what they see, and then something else happens, they have to bring it back to the shop. And that's when people can get frustrated with their mechanics. It's like, why didn't you fix everything? But that's just mechanicking in general. Like, a lot of times they don't see everything wrong with it. A lot of times things just happen. So you gotta have, either way you go about it, you gotta have patience.
Yeah, and another advice I would give is when you're fixing an RV up, buy good parts. You know, don't waste your money on cheap parts. We had a few different things that came on this thing that we used cheaper belts, you know, like fan belts, and we had like, well, an AC belt. We had one that stretched on us multiple times on the way to Ohio last year, and we constantly had to keep adjusting the AC belt because it would come loose. Well, once we got up to Ohio, we went to a Napa, and I told them to order me the very best AC belt they could get, and they ordered me a Gates Fleet Runner, which was made in the USA. We put that on there, and that was what, a year and a half ago, and that belt's still on there, and I've yet to adjust it. I mean, it, you know, so, and also we had a problem with a fuel filter, and it wasn't necessarily a cheap part. I mean, it was a cheap made part, but I mean, it wasn't a cheap cost. You know, I went to Napa and told them I wanted Napa gold fuel filter. So, you know, gold, I figured that was the best they had. Well, the fuel filter came apart where they glued a little element inside the fuel filter. The glue let loose, and the fuel filter just fell apart, so the fuel wasn't even being filtered, and it was little pieces of debris that was going into our carburetor and stopping it up. So so I wound up doing away with that and putting two inline fuel filters made out of aluminum with a cleanable element inside of them. So you know, just things like that. You know, you don't want to skimp out on, you know, to save a buck and then have to go back and redo it or have trouble on the road, because it costs a lot of money to have these things towed. You know, so so spend the extra money and buy good parts.
Yeah, because that first little RV trip we did, it was nothing vintage that went wrong with it. It was none of the vintage parts. It was all brand new parts that we had put into it, but it was just cheaper parts that went horribly wrong. So get good parts or you'll end up stranded multiple times on the road like we were. It was like a trip that should have taken a little bit over 10 hours, maybe 11 hours. It took us 17 hours to get to our destination.
We was wore out.
Yes, that was a mess. So get the good parts. It was only because we did not have good parts. Okay, so we had to pause to turn on some lights because it's starting to get darker. I don't know, I think it's just getting cloudy. But these are some of the vintage lights, original lights is in here. I'm thinking of keeping the light fixtures, which just might get LED bulbs, because they are like the original bulbs and they get really, really hot. They're not energy efficient, but again, another thing, I want to keep the vintage look. I want to keep the vintage lights, just change the light bulbs. But anyways, back to what we were saying. So yes, get the good parts.
Yep.
So I guess that's it, everyone. We have so much we are wanting to do in this RV. We have an upcoming trip coming up very soon. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a big trip. And like we've been saying, we have never done anything RV. We've never done anything in the RV world. We did like one little trip, boondocking the whole time, just for a weekend. This is going to be like full hookups at multiple different beautiful locations. We're going to Florida, the Gulf Shores of Alabama. We're going to New Orleans. All of these are
Mississippi.
yeah, oh yeah. We're going back through like a mountain of Alabama too. All of these are also places that we've never been to before. So we're doing all new things at these beautiful campgrounds with this RV. So we're hoping that it'll do good for us. So either way, it'll hopefully be entertaining. So stay tuned for that.
Yep.
Because it'll be a lot of driving that we're taking this thing
Probably about 2,000 miles or more.
Yeah, a lot of miles we're going to put on this thing. So stay tuned for that. Also, we are not done renovating this thing. If you watched our previous video, check it out if you haven't seen it. We did a whole tour of this RV, showing everything that we have done to this RV, and it's a lot. It's probably a long video because we have done so much to this thing. And when I say we, I mean mostly Steven. All I really did to this RV was I helped clean it a lot. I cleaned the furniture, cleaned the cabinets, the floors, bathroom, heavy, that initial heavy clean, and then I've like tried to keep it clean since then. That's about all I could really do to help. But anyways, we are not done. We still have things to do in this RV. Biggest thing, I think, or one of the biggest things that's going to make a big difference is painting. We're wanting to one day do a big paint job to the outside.
Yep.
We're wanting to keep it that same vintage color scheme, but just give it a fresh paint job. And there's just so much that we want to do. Just update all kinds of things. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope any of these videos, I hope they've been informative to you in any way, or at least entertaining. We enjoy making them because we enjoy talking about this RV. As much as we've done to it, like, we just can't wait to talk about it and to use it and to let it be our fun new toy. So, so you guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you are having a lovely day. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.